Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. This is episode number 173, entitled My WordPress Journey with David Decker. It was published on Thursday, the 2nd of April 2020. My name's Nathan Wrigley and I'd like to thank you for joining us once again. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you've been with us for many, many weeks, I'm really pleased that you've come back. Thanks so much. A couple of things just before we begin. I'd love it if you felt that you could share the podcast. Obviously, at this time, everybody seems to be on lockdown throughout the world and podcasts seem to be a bit of a growing resource. And it would be nice if you had some WordPress friends, if you felt that you could share it. Obviously, you can do that in whichever way you like. Write an email. You could, of course, just direct them to wpbuilds.com, or you could direct them to a page like wpbuilds.com/subscribe. And over there, you're going to find tons of ways to stay in touch with all the content that we produce. There's a couple of emails that you can subscribe to. One tells you about content as and when we produce it. So, for example, what we're doing now, the podcast, which comes out on a Thursday. But there's also the WordPress Weekly News, which we put out on a Monday. And there's things like the UI UX sessions with Pete Chineri. There's bits on that page to subscribe to our Facebook group, join our Facebook group, and things like the Slack channel and our YouTube channel as well. So there's absolutely tons of stuff. Don't forget, we also have a live session on a Monday at 2 p.m. UK time. Anyway, the point is, if you wouldn't mind letting your friends know about it, I'd be really grateful. I think one of the biggest ways to spread the word about any podcast is through Apple Podcasts and the review system that they have over there. A 5-star review would be most welcome. Also, wpbuilds.com/deals. If you're in the market for some WordPressy thing this week, wpbuilds.com/deals might be the place for you. It's a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. Tons of plugins, searchable, filterable, and you can get significant amounts off with the coupon codes over there. And finally, wpbuilds.com/advertise if you would like to put your product or service in front of a WordPress specific audience. We can certainly help you with that. Okie dokie, that's it for the sort of housekeeping. Let's get stuck into the main podcast. Today I'm speaking with David Decker. Now, David is somebody that's been in our Facebook group for the longest period of time, always helping out, giving us thoughtful questions and giving us equally thoughtful answers, a real great asset to our community. And he's come on the podcast. I actually met him in Berlin this last WordCamp Europe. It was actually last year, so 2019. Got to meet him in person and chat with him, and we decided to bring him onto the podcast. It's a lovely journey. This whole story is the journey of his WordPress life, how he discovered it, how he's using it now, all of the different things that he's done, including making plugins and so on and so forth. He's a really nice, thoughtful chap, and it's just a lovely story. I hope that you enjoy it. Hello, welcome to the interview part of the WP Builds podcast. Thanks for staying with us. Today on the call, I have David Decker from Germany. Hello, David.
Hello.
It's always a bit strange, isn't it? Because the fact is, David and I have been talking for quite a long time before this, and so we have this pretense that we've just met each other and we're just saying hello, but that's not the case. David and I, David's been in the WP Builds group for, I don't know how long, but an awfully long time, making nice comments and sensible suggestions here, there and everywhere. And then I was lucky enough to meet him at WordCamp in Europe, in Berlin, and we got chatting, and I invited him on the podcast, and he shared in the show notes that we put together a really interesting story. So as a bit of a background to that, I'm going to get him to introduce himself and say who he is and what his relationship with WordPress is. So David, if it's all right, do you just want to lay out your story? How did you end up working with computers and WordPress and so on? And feel free to go as far back as you like.
Yes, okay. I like to give some words about me. Yes, I'm David. I'm from Southeast Germany. That was the former East Germany part. And I was born in 1977. Yes, it's already over 41 years old. I'm married to a beautiful wife, and we have 2 awesome little girls. Mm-hmm. And one of them is going to school this year, so it's a great time. And I started my business, my little one-person web business in the year of 2000 when I was still trying to study at the university here in Chemnitz, Germany. And I was trying to study a subject like business administration and computer science, and later switched on to history and politics even.
Wow.
Because I'm really interested universal in all these things. But it happened that I liked the web business a bit more, so I jumped onto this full time in the coming years. So about the mid 2000 years, I switched full time, and I worked on stuff like HTML, even with iframes in those years before.
I remember them well, yes.
Yes, and in about the year 2004, 2005, it was like when the tsunami was in Southeast Asia, this big disaster. And there was a blog about this tsunami from an Australian guy, and it was running on WordPress. And I really enjoyed the front-end interface and the comments and RSS feeds and stuff like that. I wanted to have WordPress and play with it. And I was not able to install it on my hosting business back then because those hosting companies weren't capable of doing WordPress back then. But about a year later, it was 2006, I could manage to finally install it at this hosting somehow. I was totally happy. And a few weeks later, I did build the first website for a non-profit client of me, and was working really well, and the users liked it. And so I decided end of 2006, I'm going only with WordPress. I'm leaving back all the HTML behind me because I started to hating it. And I wanted just something more dynamic. So this was my beginning with WordPress. And in 2007, I was doing a lot of WordPress sites. I couldn't even number those. I never counted them.
but by that point it was like full steam ahead with WordPress, nothing else, simply WordPress, only WordPress.
Yes, I never tested or tried out other CMSs. I just liked WordPress from day one, and I was feeling this is for me. I could live with it, and I want to work with that. So that was the decision, because for me as single person business, it was clear I had not the time to try out this CMS and this CMS. That would not work. So I was clear to me, go only with one and do only that and specialize on this. This was already clear to me from a business point of view, and it was a right decision back then. One of the best decisions I made.
You picked the right one. Well done.
Yes, because at this time WordPress was kind of revolutionary to a lot. So in 2008 there was the first WordCamp in Germany. It was privately organized without the WordPress Foundation or anything. It was just kind of three guys from Germany who said, okay, let's have a WordCamp. And it was one of the first in the world. I guess maybe there were only 5 or 7 before, and we were the next one. And it was in January of 2008. It was one of the most amazing events at this time. It was like a bar camp.
Yeah.
That were also at this time very all over Germany, and it was in Hamburg, this WordCamp, and was really beautiful, and I learned a lot. And this was just like the verification for me. Okay, I'm on the right track here with WordPress.
Yeah. And where did it go from there then? Where did you go after sort of 2007, 2008? Have you sort of simply worked with WordPress ever since then? Has that managed to be the case, or have you been forced to do other things by the work environment?
Yes, I worked with WordPress in my web business ever since, and the time began already in 2007. I was always on the search for the right theme, because that was my pain point. I like good design and I have a feeling for it, but creating such a design is not one of my strengths, to put it mildly.
Yes,
and
I understand this problem massively.
And I somehow stumbled over a Studio Press at this time, and Genesis were not a topic at this time. They were selling just single WordPress themes, like a lot of other theme shops. And I thought, okay, these look nice, and so the philosophy behind just spoke to me, and I bought one of them and used it for a few client projects, and really liked what I saw. And then in 2010 they released Genesis, and I was a bit, okay, well, what's this? What is a framework even? And so I researched a lot and I got a feeling for it. And in summer of 2010 I started buying and using Genesis, and did until 2 years ago. I was only working with Genesis,
Wow.
nothing
Okay.
else in the theme space. But for my overall work, my business, in 2008 I got in the local, how is it called, in the local politics in the area where I live. I got a little contract for a non-profit organization to work for them, as had nothing to do with internet and web, and but it gave me some monthly income additional to my web business, and it was really helping me, because then a year later I learned to know my wife, and yes, it really helped in this time, and my web business got something like a side business, but it was great. So I was doing this like sort of administration business. It was 1 or 2 events a month for this non-profit organization, where I had to write some protocols and organize things, and it was really great, because I knew a lot of people from this organization, and it was really great. I did also make the websites for them, and really enjoyed it. This lasts to 2014. It was about 6 years. Then this period ended, and I was going full time again with my web business. And this in 2014 and 15, I had a little bit of a crisis, I would call it. So back in my where I had those 2 jobs, my web business and this other jobs, I had also started to code plugins for WordPress, because one day in 2011 I got a call from a close friend, and he said, okay, we are both working with Genesis, could you help me with this issue here I have, and could you make a plugin of it? And I said, okay. I looked at what he wanted directly, and I said, yes, this I can do. I can do it. I'm capable of it. And so I did. And this was my first plugin. It was you could navigate blog posts on a Genesis theme, and you had on each side of the browser you had a navigation arrow. There was some kind of a trend at this time. And this plugin was doing great, and a few weeks later I made a general WordPress version of it, not only for Genesis. But this plugin was only with PHP and CSS, not with JavaScript, because that is one of those things I really have some issues with in learning this JavaScript thing. But I think I'm getting a little bit better in the last few months with some micro steps. I'm doing very small steps, and I understand more and more, I guess. So, but back at this time, I was doing these plugins starting in 2011, and in 2014, when my other job ended for this nonprofit organization, I had about 30 plugins or so in the WordPress.org repository already, and then came this big point where I had this crisis because it was a bit too much, I guess, and I was doing my whole web business thing for 14 years at this time already, and it was just enough, and my body felt it, and my mind starting to feeling it more and more, and was like speaking to my wife, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have a client on the phone again, and I have no pleasure with it. And I started to hate WordPress, to be really honest. Yes, it sounds shocking to some maybe, but it was the truth at this time. I thought, okay, if I find any other job, I will do it. Let's have something different than WordPress and plugins and all of that. Yes, this was really, you can call it burnout or whatever, but it was just natural, because if you are doing some stuff for 14 years and almost 8 years or 9 years with WordPress at this time already, it was time for some break, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite normal. Doing something for a very long time can be a little bit, it gets a bit stagnant, doesn't it? A little bit stale, and you want to do something else.
Yes.
So what did you do? Where did you turn at that point?
Yes, it was a interesting time for me. In summer of 2014, I said to my wife, okay, I have these issues, but we have no other chance at the moment. We have a family, so I will try to make it through this, even if it's hard. And I got some clients and some work to do here and there, and was okay. We had enough money, and in 2015, this friend was calling me again, who brought me into the plugin space, and he said, okay, I have this little side job here, but I have a different project going on. Could you imagine overtaking my side job for this company here, and I can work on my other projects that I'm aiming for? And I said to him, yes, this sounds really good and really interesting, and I was really happy. And I had to what I had to do was writing little excerpts for the business of publishers, for magazine publishers, to write little excerpts for the whole business of magazine publishing, and how this business is going forward globally. And this company, it is located in Munich, Germany, had a little business for this magazine publisher, for these magazine publishers, and making mobile apps for them and other services, and also offering this kind of research news blog. And I had to write excerpts for this research news blog, and this was starting. So I was working on contract for this company a few months, and then the CEO of this company was calling me and said, okay, I like what you're doing in the last few months for us. Could you imagine to go full-time with us?
The perfect opportunity, just what you needed, something different but similar.
Yes, exactly. These are the perfect words for this. And I said, oh, yes, I'm really interested, and I will do this. I just had made a decision, so like natural. But I said, okay, we have to manage some things in the administrative and legal space, because with the how is it called, health insurance and all these things, and it's sometimes not so easy, but we could all manage it. And in the fall of 2015, I was starting full-time at this company, and already had the chance in summer of 2015 to go to a retreat with this company. They were inviting me as a soon to be a full-time member for them, and it was a great retreat we had in Romania. It was amazing there. This week we were in the Carpathians in the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. It's a beautiful country, really unknown but beautiful. And this gave me a spirit for this company, and I got to know the workers and all the other members, and we spoke a lot about what they do and what should I do, and I came a lot into it and really helped. So then in fall I started for them writing these excerpts, then also a bit of support, customer support, meaning supporting magazine publisher companies with their apps that we made for them, and doing a website for them. I switched them to WordPress and was also a success, because now they are still running all their sites on WordPress, and it's kind of a success story for them. Yes, and one thing I was not so much liking was that I had to do full-time support later on after a few months, because another member she was having a baby, so she had to go for a while.
Okay.
And I had to overtake her position and leading the support, and it was kind of hard to lead this, because as much as I liked it, and that I'm kind of person has no problem with support at all, but in this company documentation was missing. So I had to research all processes and for all things I had to ask all the other members, and was kind of hard sometimes to get information. How is this working? How you did it in the last years? What can I write this customer? I was really like Sherlock Holmes, searching for this information.
So did this job allow you to sort of keep your own things going at the same time? Was it 5 days a week or slightly less? Were you able to keep juggling your own stuff at the same time?
Yes, it was full time. It was 5 days a week, 8 hours, so a typical 9 to 5 job. But when I was speaking with the CEO, I said I have this business and I will not give it up. It will go further, and I will have still a few clients additionally to this job. And he was fully okay with it. So I never got out of WordPress, and I also had these clients I was working then during my holidays or in the evening or in the weekend. It was okay, because I reduced a lot, but a few clients I always kept, so it was really okay for me.
And how long did you keep that job? Because presumably at some point you stepped away from that to what you're sort of now doing.
Yes, this job ended in January of 2018, and then was the big question: what's next? And it happened that a long-time client of me, one of the first I had back in the 2000s, he was asking me if I could help him, because they had a lot of work to do with their sites and shops. And so then later on I got to ask the question, maybe can you make a job out of it instead of a contract work? And he was totally open to it, and I guess he also liked the idea, and I also liked the idea, because it was win-win for us. I had a monthly income.
Yep.
And he has a worker. He is really committed to this company, but we made it that way that I only work 3 days a week for them, and the other 2 days I work on my own business.
Okay. And is that is that currently how you're still doing it, or?
Yes, that is my current status.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Yeah. Are you still wedded to Genesis, or have things changed since there? Are you still getting open template files and wrangling the PHP, or are you using different tools now?
Yes. My whole tool stack changed in the last 2 years. And this had to do when I was still at this company in Munich. where I had this full-time job, 5 days a week, I had the time to think more about the future of my web work and WordPress work at all. And I came to the conclusion I still really like Genesis, but I want to look beyond the blade and look what is always also there in the WordPress universe and try out some new things. And I was always interested in page building because I'm totally fascinated how you can, with a system in an interface, build up a whole page. This always fascinated me. And so when this came to WordPress, I was really seemed really awesome to me. I was one of the first customers of Visual Composer back at that time, but I didn't like the product. It didn't have this bad image it has now at the first time it came out, but I liked the process of building stuff visually. But I was buying Visual Composer and played with it, but I never used it in a project. I just used it to play because it was not my imagination in the end of doing things. I did not like really the way it worked and the interface, but the concept, I thought this is the concept of the future, but not how it is executed here in this plugin.
Yeah.
So and after all these years, I always bought plugins and tried things here and there, but I never liked any of it. And so also with Beaver Builder, I was really blown away by it. But when I was putting it to a project, it was too slow for me, just like the customizer. Maybe it was only me or my environment, but it was so slow, and I was a bit of kind of frustrated. I so wanted it to put it to use and make it in a project, and it didn't work out, and maybe it was time pressure and everything, and so it came everything together, and so I was, okay, this is not for me. And then in 2016, when I already were working in support for this company, Elementor came out, and I was installing it on release day and said, okay, this looks a bit strange. This has another color. This looks like another interface again. Okay, maybe this is not the right thing. But half a year later, I was, okay, I just tried this out. They had a few versions in all these months, and I said, okay, maybe it's different now, and they have added some features, and I was installing it again on a test install, and I was totally blown away.
Oh, nice.
It finally clicked with me, and I somehow understand how it worked, and I saw some videos on YouTube about it, and I was, oh, this is my thing. And finally, all the years I waited for it, this thing, what fits with me, came out, and I was using Elementor right away for a project, and then in a few hours I had the front page created. I was so happy.
Yeah.
I was sitting days on it otherwise, or even a week. But now I had this in about 3 hours ready, and the next morning I was presenting it to the client, and he was, yes, we like it. This is okay. We can take this version, and then we were going to the pages, and a few pages we did also with Elementor, and the whole project could be finished in time, and it was really a great experience for me. This was already then in 2017, and this, beside my day job, I had in the evenings and on the weekends, I had some time to play with Elementor, and I really liked it. Then I explored GeneratePress and even Astra. That was still new at these days. It was released in early 2017, and I explored it in about fall of 2017. And was really blown away because I saw, okay, these themes also work with hooks like Genesis. They have the filters, so a lot of similar things, but I have a lot of pre-made options, and I can set up a theme where I was working with Genesis before for a non-profit organization, maybe a week. I could set all things up in a day. or in a
Nice.
few hours.
Nice.
So this saved me a lot of time, and I thought, why should I work with Genesis then? What's the point here? I saved so much time for these little sites, so I will want to change it. And I was then overhauling my whole toolbox. So it's now Elementor focused where I need it. I don't use Elementor for every page, but for some important pages I use it, and for this and this and this, because you can also put Elementor template in a special hook area or whatever.
Yeah.
So I use these kind of things. I combine my whole Genesis knowledge with these new tools, and this is working beautifully together, all things. And I just thought, okay, I want to try new themes like GeneratePress and Astra in this case, and working still with Genesis because I have a lot of clients still running on it. And why should I change the system?
Yeah.
Makes no sense. It works beautifully, and there's no need to change it. So, but for new projects, I'm always deciding now what is best here.
Yeah. So that's your current stack. You've got
Yes,
using
of course.
obviously WordPress, you're using Elementor most of the time, maybe is a good way to describe it, and a mixture of Astra and GeneratePress. I mean, it's a really interesting story that you've laid out there. You know, a real sort of mixed relationship, getting into WordPress early, getting, you know, life taking over, having to sort of step away from it, getting a bit frustrated with it, coming back to it, finding, especially more recently, finding some tools which you which really, you know, it sounds like you've really gelled with them. They are an inspiration to you. You know, you said that they were
absolutely
sort of game changers, and finding a sort of new vigor and a new interest in WordPress. I think that's probably that's happened to quite a few people along the road, I would imagine. You know, they've kind of fallen out of love with it, and then they've stuck with it for some reason, maybe stepped away for a while and come back, and so much has changed in the last couple of years, especially, let's say 3 years, that you can come back and all of a sudden it feels like it's completely new again, and suddenly you can do things that were frustrating. You can achieve them in a matter of hours. So that's
exactly.
Yeah, so
it's like a new kind of WordPress, or a second spring, or how you call it.
Exactly. A sort of a completely new way of doing things, especially when you're using something like a page builder. We won't get into the whole Gutenberg thing and whether you're using that.
Yes, of course.
It's just a
bit of plugins or so.
Yeah, well,
I would say
the next thing that I want to talk about, and this I believe is really an interesting thing, because we never get this side. At least we haven't on this podcast anyway. You may have noticed that David, during the course of him speaking in the last few minutes, sort of casually mentioned that he's got a few plugins in the WordPress repository, but the number may have escaped you as he kept talking. So, but it is remarkable how many free plugins have you got currently? I know that the number is bigger that you've had in the past, but how many have you currently got on WordPress.org?
Currently, I have 24 publicly available on WordPress.org.
Okay, so yeah, just take that number in for a moment. 24. That's rather a lot. How come? What is it that makes you sit there and write, presumably hour after hour, week after week? What is it that makes you do that? Are you largely doing this because you've discovered something that you need fixing, or are you doing this because you've kind of figured out a need, and you know you haven't necessarily needed it yourself, but you think, oh, it'd be good if that happened?
Yes, some kind of all of those.
Yeah.
Most plugins came to life because I had to scratch an itch of mine.
Yeah, perfect.
Or I got the first one actually came to life because this close friend was phoning me and asking me about it, and this started it all. Then because of this first one, I got confidence that I can codings, that me personally, who was never in programming and never in PHP, was able to do this. And it was such a big moment for me. I can not describe it completely, but I was feeling so happy that I was able to do it. And this gave me so much confidence that I thought, okay, I have all these ideas, all these issues. Maybe I am able to do my own thing and have a solution for it. So, and almost all plugins I did for Genesis framework were growing out of these things. I had a personal need or a personal frustration or some users in the Genesis community where I was and still connected had these issues. So, and I thought, okay, I am able to solve this for them.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Yes, and this was especially for Genesis, and I thought then, okay, Genesis is this community, but WordPress is more. And so a few plugins that were general for WordPress, not specifically for Genesis. And that came another thing because I'm a lover of the toolbar, of the admin bar in WordPress, and this is just how would you call it, a passion project of me. So when sitting endless hours in the dashboard of WordPress and coding the whole or setting up and implementing a site for a client the whole night to finish on time. I thought these processes with the toolbar could be improved. This is not the current state in WordPress is not how this should be. So I thought I can make this better. So all my toolbar plugins are just a personal issue and passion project. This is a bit different.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose for a developer like yourself, that's probably the primary reason for doing this stuff. I mean, everything that you've got is completely freely available. So I was kind of wondering from that point of view, there's no money in this for you. It's just for the love of it. Perhaps it's about, the ability to learn how to overcome a particular task, whether that's, like a UI thing or whether that's a coding challenge, something that you've got to learn in order to get this plugin out of the gate. But there must be an awful lot that goes into it. You must spend quite a lot of hours behind the scenes developing, getting the planning done and presumably maintaining and supporting these plugins. And I just wondered about what that burden was like. How many hours a week do you sort of give over to this, even though there's no financial reward?
Yes, that is a good question. I never counted those hours because it was always a passion for me. When we didn't have children, then I had, of course, a little bit of more time to do it. And this coding plugins, that got me so much understanding of the inner meanings of WordPress, of themes and plugins at all. All what I learned when coding plugins, this is so much more what I learned before. Before doing plugins, I was only knowing a fraction of WordPress. I was just a normal user who was also able to install WordPress, set up a theme and a few plugins and setting up content. So, but then I understand what all these template functions meant and how they work, and I had no longer fear of those functions. And when I started coding plugins, I could work faster for clients and I could solve more complex problems for them, and it was a win-win for all. I was not demanding money for these plugins. I was giving them away for free, but they brought me back so many things. I got more clients. I got more bigger clients or clients who could pay me more, and I could increase my rates because I had more skills now and was more professional. So this really helped me a lot to get more money, but not directly from the plugins, but more on other ways. And I got some donations here and there, but that is so tiny amount. So that is not the thing. The thing is the starting coding plugins opened so many doors for me, and I would do it always again.
Nice. Yeah, that's really nice. However, interestingly, it's not always a pleasant journey, is it? Because as we discussed during the before we actually pressed record. It can be a bit of a two-way street. Although it sounds like it's fun and you're having a great time, you're learning lots of new code. You've understood the inner workings of WordPress, and you've managed to get all these amazing plugins out the door. Sadly, it doesn't always feel like it's amazing, because sometimes things come along which cause upset. So maybe we could get into that a little bit. And I'm talking here about the impact of reviews in WordPress.org.
Yes, that is a great topic, and it really goes deep, this topic. I started, or my plugin started getting some reviews in the early years already, and this came from passionate users that were really happy and thankful, mostly Genesis community users, and I got some 5-star reviews. I was really happy about it, of course, because when you get your first 5-star review, this is like having birthday or Christmas together.
Nice.
And but then came the day one time, I guess in 2012 or so, when I was getting my first 1-star review. So a really, really bad thing. And this was blowing me away, but on a negative scale.
Yeah. And
I was feeling so emotional. I was feeling so bad. I was almost crying before my desktop. This was really getting directly on me, and I felt, okay, I did a big mistake. I am wrong. I did make a big error. What's going on here? And can I fix this? What's wrong with my plugin? And all these thoughts was going like in my head, was going on. And I really had to manage to cope with this. So, and it was a not so good experience, but it was really needed, I guess. And I know that any developer on WordPress.org at some day or another will have this experience and will have this feeling. So this is also why I want to speak about this in public, because I think we have to speak about this more, because especially when you are a plugin author like me, who is not has no paid plugins, because you are doing this for free in your spare time, and your wife and your family knows this and supports you, and then you get like a 1-star review, you feel like, oh, I get punished for this.
Yeah.
And this is something you have to learn to handle and to manage.
Did you, when you received that review, were you kind of taken aback by how it impacted you? Because it sounds like, you could have had, let's say, 100 5-star reviews, and they were all very, very pleasant, very nice to have, but they didn't have an equal, a positive equal impact, and yet you get a 1-star review, just one of them, and it manages to really change how you feel about this. And you start questioning whether you've built the whole thing wrong, and whether there's failings in what you've done. It's strange how that can happen.
Yes, but this is like it's happened to me, and it's still that way. But nowadays I can cope with it better, because I know the world is spinning further and life is going on.
Yeah.
It's not. It does not throw me off, and I get not knocked down like in this first day when I got this review. But the problem here is when you are author of only free plugins on WordPress.org, the reviews is like a currency that manages where your plugins are located in search results and everything. So reviews is very important. It's like the only, or one of the highest or the most important things to get you better results in searches and everything. So, and they are really the WordPress.org team, plugins team, is really that they want only honest and real reviews. They do a lot behind the scenes to avoid any fake reviews or any mistakes in this area. So in the past years, I got not so many positive reviews. A few, and most of my plugins have a few, but most of these plugins, especially the Genesis ones, have these 2 or 5 or 7 5-stars reviews for the last 5 or 6 years. They didn't get any new ones, and I got a few 1-star reviews, and these 1-stars get the plugins a bit more down. And nowadays even further. And I had to learn with my latest plugin. It's called Toolbar Extras. It is the first plugin where I'm asking within the plugin, within the dashboard, if you like the plugin, please review it. And I even made an admin notice, so asking the users to review my plugin, but this notice will only appear after about it's randomized about between 2 and 4 weeks of usage. So I made this because I want real reviews from users who worked about at least 2 weeks with this plugin. So not after a day and not after just installing it, but only after 2 weeks. And the amazing thing is, when I ask for real reviews, I got a lot already, and this is really making me happy.
Nice.
As much as I was feeling bad for the 1-star review, I'm now also happy because I learned when I'm asking honestly for reviews, I get a lot. And this is also what I can tell other plugin authors. Ask for reviews, you will get them, at least a lot. Not all users will review it, but a fraction of your users will be happily doing it. But you have to ask them because they can forget it and not are even aware of it. So ask for it, but do it in a honest, transparent, polite way. Always put the user first. And in the past years, I was not asking for reviews. I was just leaving the plugin there, and then all these things happened. That was before my WordPress crisis. I was not caring that much about reviews, and then I was shocked when I got a bad review. So this is also something I learned.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this, and a perspective that we've never had before, is the whole impact that the review system can actually have on the developer, because you kind of as a casual user of a plugin, you download a plugin and you use it, and then you go and give your review, 3 or 5 or 1 or whatever it is that you feel you're doing. But it's kind of like an electronic transaction. There's no human being in it. And so it's really interesting to hear your side of it. The fact that, being courteous and being polite and, asking, maybe retrieving some support before you go and give your, 1-star review or whatever it might be. Because often there's a person behind the plugin, and often that person, I say often, if it's on the WordPress repo, then they have given that time for free so that you can try it out. And so maybe for those people who are accustomed to kind of not using support and then going out and giving a negative review, maybe it's a moment to pause and think that, there's a real person behind this. I'm just going to change tack just before we finish, so that to give you an opportunity to talk about your Toolbar Extras plugin, because I know that's your sort of latest and probably the thing that you're interested in most at the moment. Do you want to tell us what it is, what it does, who it's aimed for, and so on? Because it's a really interesting idea.
Yes, sure. This plugin is called Toolbar Extras, and it was released in April last year, in 2018, and it's currently has about 15,000 active installs, which is a lot for this kind of niche plugin, for this kind of special interest plugin, because this plugin is aimed at administrator users. It does nothing for editor or author or other user roles. You have to be administrator, or in multi-site you have to be the super administrator, the super admin.
Okay.
So why is this useful, or why did I make this? Because when I'm setting up a client side or just working with WordPress, I'm logged in as the administrator because I did set up this thing. So I'm the boss, and I want to work faster in WordPress and save time. Let's give an example. I'm on the front end, I'm logged in and I'm on the front end of this site I'm working with, and I want to just jump into the menu management, to setting up or changing a navigation menu. So with my plugin, I can go in the toolbar and hovering over the website name, and then I have an item nav menu, and it lists even the navigation menus that are set up on the site, and I can choose the one I want to edit, and just clicking on it, and I'm taken right in the admin area and to this special admin menu. And I do this a lot of time, especially for clients. I'm on the phone and the clients saying me change this and this item because I'm not able to do it. You are the expert, do it for me. So and I just it saves so many time. It's only a few seconds because you save the mouse travel time to go deeper on the admin or change to the admin, go deeper to this appearance navigation menu. So the toolbar it speeds up these processes, and it saves a few seconds here, a few seconds there. And if you are working for 8 hours in the admin, it can save a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And
indeed,
why not? This is a lot. If you have 15 minutes more family time.
I don't know how many times I've wasted, a minute here and a minute there, sort of clicking on things and then waiting for that page to come, and then waiting and then clicking on the next thing just so that you can get back to where you know that you need to be. It's bizarre, really. Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre and yet, never sort of fixed it for myself. So is this designed for a particular range of tools? So, for example, does it have the capability to amend the toolbar for certain plugins, popular plugins?
Yes, also, and this is the idea behind the first version of this plugin was actually supporting all plugins and themes from my personal tool stack. A few more, but the core of it was my personal tool stack. So I made it just for me, so I can work faster. And it is a success story for me personally. I'm so happy to working with this every day. And I thought, okay, I had a few toolbar plugins in the years before, and most of them were going really good, better than I always expected. Could never imagine why. But now this Toolbar Extras plugin is the focus of all this work with toolbar plugins in years before, and it is finally bringing it all together. In former years, I was making the mistake to put every plugin like BBPress or BuddyPress or Gravity Forms or Easy Digital Downloads and WooCommerce, and making some toolbar extensions for this plugin. But if you're working with all of them, and I had a few clients where we had most of them installed, I would end up with maybe 5 or 6 toolbar plugins. So this made no sense to me.
Yeah.
And I was always shying away to adding a settings page for these plugins. So, and last year it came to, I said to me personally, okay, I have to change this. I make a new plugin. I'm starting from scratch, and it will have an admin settings page. This is my decision now. So, and then I was starting to code it up, and of course I was using inspirations and tiny little code parts from these other plugins, but most code is really written from scratch. It's a complete new thing. It has a complete new structure. And the admin settings, I was coding it up like a month or so, and the settings stage I was saving for the as the last thing, because I was shying away of it a little bit. But then I could manage to code it up. It was a little bit of a challenge for me, but it all worked out. I was really happy, and the next week I was releasing it. And now this plugin works perfectly with Elementor. It's also focusing on Elementor users a lot, but it's fully optional. You can use toolbar extras just with vanilla WordPress, and you still have a lot of bonuses and a lot of awesome things it already does for vanilla WordPress. But if you have Elementor installed and it is activated, then automatically my plugin can do a lot more. It can manage the Elementor templates a little bit better. You have a quick jump links. You have even for Elementor, which I really like, a one-click template.
Yeah.
You can add a template with one click, and Elementor Live Editor is starting. So you click add new section template. You have to make one click with your mouse, and it's starting all of the Elementor thing, and you can just start working and dragging and drop your sections in Elementor or whatever. So in this case, it saves maybe 5 clicks or so and a lot of mouse travel. So if you create 10 Elementor templates in a row, this can really save some time for you.
Yeah, and I noticed that you've also added support for some other popular WordPress plugins.
Currently, I have a lot of popular plugins supported, Elementor, some WooCommerce also, but also ACF. Pods is also working in the latest version, and so many plugins I cannot remember all I can currently support. I have to look at the list myself. It's about over 400 plugins I support or integrate.
That's incredible.
in one way or another. Yes, it's really incredible. I almost support any Elementor add-ons that has a setting page or a post type, content page or whatever. Why I am doing this? This sounds a little bit crazy, but because I'm supporting all these things, it makes the work for the user a lot easier, because the user has installed some kind of a tool stack most of their time.
Yep.
So when they install my plugin, they can just start working.
Yes.
They have not to set up anything or whatever. And if this add-on for Elementor or this plugin is already active, then if it's supported in my plugin, then there may be a new item here and a new item there. So that is all. These integrations are mostly tiny little things, but I just list them to have a complete list what I support.
Yeah. It's an incredibly admirable effort. So, my suggestion would be, if you've not come across David's Toolbar Extras, the simple way to find it would be to go to toolbarextras.com, and I should say that if you're feeling generous and very nice, there is if you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, there's a little icon that looks like a heart, which is pulsing gently, and you can donate to David's endeavours, because obviously you've heard his story today. You've heard about the ups and the downs, the trials and the tribulations. 30 plus plugins in the WordPress.org repo. I think it's fair to say that David has contributed rather a lot, and so if you've enjoyed David's story and you appreciate the things that he's been doing, maybe that's a nice way of sort of making him smile and donate to him because of all the wonderful stuff that he does. David, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Is there anything you would like to say about where we can find you? A Twitter handle or a different homepage?
I would say my current plugin homepage for Toolbar Extras is the best one to contact me, toolbarextras.com, and my personal Twitter is Decker Web, just my last name and the word web attached in one word, Decker Web. And this is where my WordPress stuff on Twitter happens. And I'm also on Facebook with Decker Web. So these three things, Twitter, Facebook, and the plugin website, is best to get in touch with me. And thank you very much for having me. It was an awesome experience.
You are more than welcome. Yeah, thank you for being such a valued member of our community and Facebook group. You're often in there giving some nice comments and helping people out. That's very much appreciated. And just from my perspective, thank you for contributing and making all of this stuff available for free over the many years that you've been doing it. Thank you very much, David Decker.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that, me chatting with David Decker about his WordPress journey. I really enjoy these kind of episodes. They're a little bit different. There's no product as such to pitch. It's just a story about how David has interacted with WordPress, and it kind of feels a little bit like my story, and I'm sure in many ways it's a bit like your story, discovering WordPress, finding the community, enjoying playing with it and tinkering with it and getting it to do the things that you need it to do, and ultimately using it as your way of making a living. So really nice story, and thanks to David for making the time to come on and talk to us. I really enjoyed chatting with him, very much indeed. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by WP and Up. 1 in 4 of us will be directly affected by mental health related illness. WP and Up supports and promotes positive mental health within the WordPress community. This is achieved through mentorship, events, training and counselling. So please help enable WP and Up by visiting wpandup.org/give. Okay, we've got plenty going on. I know that a lot of you are kind of finding that you're in isolation at the moment. You're having to lock yourself away from the rest of the world. Well, we've got quite a few bits and pieces for you. We will, of course, bring you another podcast this time next week. So that's a Thursday. It usually comes out at 1 p.m. UK time. But join us on Monday. I'll be giving my WordPress news for the previous week. And also 2 p.m. UK time, we'll be joined by some live guests for our WP Builds live weekly WordPress news. So there's lots going on. I hope that you feel, like I said at the top of the show, that you can share the podcast. I'd certainly appreciate that. And I'll fade in a little bit of cheesy music, sort of 1950s, 40s style this time, and say bye-bye for now.